Welcome to Child Abuse Awareness with Darlene J. Clark.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Child Abuse Awareness with Darlene J. Clark. Be a part of the solution, instead of part of the problem. This is always a difficult subject to talk about, but it's very important too. Today we're discussing child abuse signs and symptoms. Remember to speak out, to seek help, never lose hope. Hello everyone that's here. Please hit the thumbs up. If you notice on the left side of my screen up top, that's a QR code for the soft cover of my book as well. That should be easier for people to find. Okay, without further ado, let's get to the topic of child abuse. Please hit the like, subscribe, and share. Copyright disclaimer. Under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips and balance in favor of fair use. Hey there, Parkey. Thanks for coming in. Hope you're doing well tonight. So let me click that back off. We need to know if you suspect child abuse, call the Child Help National Child Abuse Hotline at 1-800-4-A-CHILD or 1-800-422-4453 or go to www.childhelp.org. All calls are toll-free and confidential. The hotline is available 24/7 in more than 170 languages. Hey there, Mr. L. Good to see you too. Thanks for coming in. Not sure why the screen is getting all wonky here. Share the screen here. Boy, that Nightbot just loves to get on to you doing the emotes, don't it? Mr. L. Okay, at this site right here, you see where, let me go back to StreamYard so we can make sure that it's doing a full link there. Hello, Peggy. Good to see you. Thanks for coming in. I thought this was rather interesting here. This was mandate reporter training that they did have in New York State. It says the New York State Office of Children and Family Services now offers free 24/7 online mandated reporter training in child abuse and neglect, maltreatment identification. So you can register anytime at nysmandatedreporter.org. But it said mandated reporters must complete this updated training by April the 1st, 2025 to be in compliance with the New York SOC Serve Law 413. But I think that's interesting getting to know that. So now we're going to definitions of child abuse and maltreatment. Generally, the term Abuse encompasses the most serious harms committed against children. An abused child is a child whose parent or other person legally responsible for his or her care inflicts upon the child serious physical injury, creates a substantial risk of serious physical injury, or commits an act of sex abuse against the child. A person who perpetrates any of these actions against a child in their care can be abusive, and so can a person who allows someone else to do these things to a child. Child abuse is defined in Section 412 of the Social Services Law and at Section 1012 of the Family Court Act. See that, Scott? Where if you allow someone to harm your child, you are part responsible. Maltreatment refers to the quality of care a child is receiving from those responsible for the child. Maltreatment occurs when a parent or other person legally responsible for the care of a child harms a child or places a child in imminent danger of them by failing to exercise the minimum degree of care in providing the child with any of the following: food, clothing, shelter, education, or medical care when financially able to do so. Maltreatment can also result from abandonment of a child or for not providing adequate supervision for the child. A child may be maltreated if a parent engages in excessive use of drugs or alcohol such that it interferes with their ability to adequately supervise the child. There's cases where parents have been doing a drug and the, they are around their child and the child ends up drugged as well. Neglect is defined in Section 1012 of the Family Court Act. Maltreatment is defined in Section 412 of the Social Services Law, although the terms are not synonymous in the law. For the purposes of this website, the terms neglect and maltreatment are used interchangeably. So there are common indicators of abuse or neglect, things to look for if you suspect a child is being abused or maltreated. So I want to go on over here to this other thing that I noticed earlier. 20 signs of abuse to look for in toddlers or babies. These are the common symptoms of physical, emotional, and sexual abuse. It can be really scary if you think your child or a child you know is being abused. Recognizing common signs and symptoms can play a big part in putting a stop to any abusive situations and ensuring the child's safety. Child abuse can be physical, emotional, and or sexual, and the signs for each may differ. Keep reading to learn what behaviors to out for if you suspect child abuse or neglect. If you notice any of these signs, contact the police or your local Child Protective Services office immediately, which I got that number down there if you want to call 1-800 for a child and report it anonymously. Things you should know: reverting to outgrown behaviors, being overly submissive or aggressive, and a lack of attachment to a caregiver are signs of emotional abuse. Like we had a teacher a while ago who was saying somebody was aggressive. Signs of physical abuse include unexplained injuries, bruises, bites, scratches, etc., fear of caregivers, and sudden changes in behavior. Children who have been sexually abused may have an inappropriate knowledge of sex, fear physical touch, and have trouble sitting or walking. Y'all had noticed that there was a baby who had been so neglected, and the child was in the hospital. The child would not even look at the nurses when they were giving the baby a bottle because it was not used to bonding with anyone. Do y'all remember when y'all had a child and you were feeding it a bottle? How the baby looks lovingly into your at your face, into your eyes. You look lovingly up back at this. These poor kids get so neglected that they don't feel safe enough to go and look someone in the face while they're being fed. They don't have that bond. Sign is a black eye. There's a bite mark. from an adult, broken bones, burns, scratches, unexplained injuries. It's normal for infants and toddlers to get a few bumps and bruises while they curiously explore their surroundings. However, if a child you know is coming to you with numerous severe injuries, that's a major reason to be concerned. This can include things like burns, bites, bruises, broken bones, or black eyes. Marks from abuse often appear in places where children don't normally get hurt, such as their back, buttocks, torso, or thighs. You notice a lot of times when a child had been abused, even when it's hot, they wear these long pants and these long sleeve shirts to cover up the bruises. Take note if the injuries seem to be oddly shaped, such as bruises that resemble a person's hand or footprint. Keep in mind that some forms of physical discipline, like mild spankings, are not necessarily abuse. The child might also wear heavy clothing, even in the hottest weather, to try and hide their abused body, so look for that sign of physical abuse. The fear of home and or caregivers. An infant or toddler who has been abused by someone at home may not want to go home. They may avoid their parents or other caregivers, for instance, by forcefully clinging to a teacher at preschool when it's time to go home. Mild separation anxiety is common among infants and toddlers and does not necessarily indicate abuse. Sometimes they just might like the fact that they're getting spoiled a little bit more where they're at. Keep in mind that just because a child seems afraid of their caregiver, it doesn't mean automatically that a caregiver is being abusive. If there's a problem, someone else at home may be the cause. Not wanting to go home is normal if the child is in a place they consider fun. However, if the place isn't somewhere they find particularly fun, or if they seem more fearful than sad or angry, or if it happens all the time, it might be a sign. Here's where a child normally, before they were abused or something, they were being loving. Then after they're being abused, were abused by someone, they don't want to be touched. They don't want to be hugged. This parent is going to try to hug the child, and the child don't want to be hugged. Sudden changes in behavior. It's common for an abused child to suddenly act differently. For example, you might notice that a normally active and outgoing toddler has become much more withdrawn or quiet, or they are normally very gentle but have suddenly become aggressive. This might be a sign that they're being abused. Sudden anxiety, fear, and or depression are also key signs. I've known some kids that actually went into the closet and defecate or urinated in a closet because they were fearful of the parent. For example, a child you know might have really liked playing outside, but now they're very afraid when you suggest going out. Infants and young toddlers can also show changes in behavior. For example, they may become overly fussy without any explainable cause. This might also be a sign of some other trauma that isn't abuse. If you don't know which it is, perhaps get a child psychologist's opinion. Obsession with trauma and violence. If a child has been the victim of abuse, it's unlikely that they'll be able to fully understand what has happened to them. As a result, they may talk a lot about violent or traumatic events or about hurting themselves or others. They may also become very aggressive with other people. That sounds a lot like that little boy that the teacher was talking about earlier in the discussion today. For example, if you notice a child talking a lot about wanting to hurt other kids or suddenly becoming obsessed with violent games, this might be a sign of abuse. If you work at the child's school or daycare and notice them suddenly fighting with other kids or bullying them, it's a good idea to step in and ask the child why they're behaving so aggressively. Changes in eating habits. It's natural for infants and toddlers to sometimes be picky eaters. However, if the child seems to have significantly changed how they eat without a clear cause, such as experiencing a growth spurt or being sick, this might be a sign they've been abused. Changes in eating caused by stress, anxiety, or fear may cause them to stop eating or to overeat. A noticeable sign is if they gain or lose a lot of weight in a relatively short period of time. Child abuse can also sometimes lead to children developing eating disorders. Due to children who are abused are constantly being shamed, and they may develop body image issues because of it. Signs a child has an eating disorder are believing themselves to be too fat, trying to make themselves throw up, especially after eating a lot more or a lot less than usual, without some clear other cause like a growth spurt. Unusual behavior around food, such as cutting it into small pieces, wanting to eat alone, seeming stressed around mealtime, seeming malnourished, and other psychological distress, such as depression or anxiety attacks. If your child shows signs of an eating disorder, regardless of whether it was caused by abuse, seek professional help immediately. One thing I want to add, and I'm thinking about now, because when I wasn't being fed at 11 years old, when I was living at home with my mom and my stepdad, and I would have to sneak in the house and eat mayonnaise, ketchup, salt, pepper sandwiches. That's all I had for the 2 years, basically. Um, when they weren't home, because she refused to feed me. She said if I wanted to eat, I would go out and prostitute myself. I refused to do that. Okay. Um, But it's kind of funny how when I tried to go into the lunchroom and the smell of food made me nauseous, so I just left the lunchroom and I would just walk around the school. No teacher, no adult said anything about, hey, this person's not wanting to be around food. Hey, something's wrong with this child. It can't be around food. There were so many signs around these adults that should have said something or noticed something, but nothing was done. Sometimes they had to bring a cot in the front of the room because I would get so sick because I wasn't eating. So I had to lay on a cot in front of the classroom just because of that too. Being so weak and sick of my stomach from not getting the proteins that the body needs. But all this was nobody stood up, and that's kind of sad. How many other kids has this happened to or happening to, right? So here's a little kid crying. Problem sleeping. An infant who normally sleeps through the night may begin to wake up multiple times throughout the night. Or a toddler may talk about having nightmares frequently. These are both signs of possible abuse. Another symptom is being more tired during the day and not having a lot of energy. Nightmares are more common excuse me for that, among younger children than older people, but if it's happening more than usual, or if the nightmares have a recurring theme or to keep the child awake, it might mean some kind of trauma, whether abuse or a different kind of trauma. I spent the night with a friend of mine when I lived in Florida. Their parents liked me being there some of the time until my mom put a stop to me. They said nobody wants me around, so don't go back over there. But that found out later in life that all was a lie. That they wondered why I wasn't back over there. But I was told I was having nightmares through the night, and it was blood curdling screams and stuff. But I didn't remember them when I woke up or anything. But they told me that I had horrific nightmares. And see, if they didn't tell me that later in life, I would have never known, right? So now there's signs of sexual abuse right here. Early sexual awareness or knowledge, sorry, excuse me. It's totally normal for a child to be curious about things like how babies are made and the differences between boys and girls. However, if a toddler seems to know a lot about sex at such a young age, or they talk about it frequently, this may be a red flag suggestion they've been sexually abused. For example, it's concerning if a child is explaining sexual acts in graphic detail. A few years ago, and I brought it to the mom's attention. I guess hindsight's 2020 now. On I don't know how I should have went about it, and I probably went about it in a wrong way. But there was a kindergartner that lived a couple of doors down, and we were at another neighbor's house. I was helping her move items out and helping her get rid of a dresser. Well, the young boy, that's kindergartner, said, "I know what that is." He said, "That's a condom." I said, "Yeah, you know what you do with a condom?" He said, "Yeah." I was thinking it's gonna something like water balloons, you know? That's a lot of kids that age does. He said, "No, a guy puts it on his," and he literally said penis, before having sex, and I thought, "How the heck did you know? And you're just a kindergartner, and you know that you use a condom there before sex if you don't want." I was so flabbergasted. And then the sister was bouncing up and down on a rug, and she made a statement, and she goes, "That's what you do with a dildo." How sick and disgusting is this, y'all? So now when you go back and you think about it, it's like, oh my gosh, there's the signs right there that these kids were being sexually abused. Y'all know what I'm saying here? Hi, Chris. Hey, Peggy. So there's the red flags. There's the signs. The bad thing is, anytime I talked to anybody about it, nobody wanted to do anything, right? Oh boy, that really is upsetting me. I'm sorry when I think about those two young kids, one being a kindergartner, one being 8 years old, right? Early sexual awareness or knowledge, it's totally normal to be curious about things like how babies are made and the differences between boys and girls. And so that's exactly what we just got went over. I'm sorry, that still bothers me today. Just knowing and remembering that the little kids said and did that, right? Anytime I passed the parent at night, their doors were open. And the kids were up even at 2 o'clock in the morning when I passed by, right? So something was very strange, right? So here's a kid that's holding himself and says difficulty walking or sitting. A child that has been sexually abused may experience some physical trauma as a result. If you notice that your child is having trouble walking or sitting, or they complain about pain when they do so, it's reasonable to suspect sexual abuse. Another sign is if a child complains about pain or itching in their genital area. This might also mean UTI or yeast infection, but it could be abuse if it's paired with other signs. All of a sudden, the boy says no because he don't want to address in front of anybody, right? Now, I know sometimes when there's some kids when they get a certain age and it's like, no, I want to be able to address myself, okay? That's a different scenario than this is what it's talking about. Okay, reluctance to change in front of others. If a child has suffered from sexual abuse, they might be afraid of changing or taking off their clothes in front of you or other people. Or you might notice if they're afraid of one specific person. For example, they may outright refuse to change, or a young child might cry or throw a tantrum. When I was in PE, when I was in the eighth grade, I refused to go ahead and change my clothes till everybody else left the locker room. So that was, yeah, that's pretty much a telltale sign right there. Fear of physical touch. If you notice that a child shies away when you try to hug them or touch them in any other way, this could be a cause for concern. Of course, some children just aren't too fond of physical touch. But if you notice a dramatic change, such as a child demanding hugs every night and suddenly stopping one day, this might be a sign that they've been abused. Another example would be if a toddler or infant starts crying when you approach them or try to touch them. If you notice that a child looks afraid when others try to approach them, this is a major reason to be concerned. Signs of emotional abuse. Look at the kid sucking his thumb, falling back into outgrown behaviors. Abuse can make children feel insecure and they may begin acting younger than their age. For example, a potty trained child may begin to wet the bed again, or they may start sucking their thumb again despite having stopped a long time ago. This is a very common sign of emotional abuse and other types of abuse as well that you should definitely not ignore. This kind of behavior mainly happens in younger children. When my son at age 10 or 11 had like a growing spurt problem, I took him to the doctor with him wet in the bed, and he said it's because his body was getting used to growing. And so he said that's normal in the age group that he was in. So other examples include a sudden fear of the dark or strangers, memory problems, and a loss of acquired language skills, going from full sentences to broken phrases, forgetting words, etc. And I didn't understand why at age 4, my son that was usually talkative, playful, laughing, and giggling all of a sudden stopped talking around people, and he would just come to me and he would whisper. He stopped all communication out loud. He stopped, and it was really troubling to me. And I was glad that, so I put him in a daycare center, like put him in there once a week to be around other kids, hoping that might help. They had the same problem. He would not talk. So I had often wondered what made him all of a sudden decide to not talk. And the only thing I could attribute that to, like that lady Penelope said earlier, when a child witnesses someone being abused, like they witnessed their daddy hitting me, okay, that's a trauma to them as well. So that could pretty much be what caused a lot of that problem there. Regression could also be a response to a different kind of trauma or to a change in a child's life. Children usually regress because of some sort of stress, and they regress back to a time when they felt happier and safer. This is why a child who has been abused might start sucking their thumb again like they had done when they were younger. A child might also start rocking back and forth. That's another comfort that we see, to a child. I don't know why it's got to mess up like this. Minimize it. Let's stop sharing for a minute. Maybe get back to it. I'm sorry about that. Doing this crazy crap. Okay, now I got it back. So please forgive me. Wants to bite me. So share this again. If anybody got any questions, please let me know. Signs of emotional abuse. See, it wants to skip around. I'm sorry. Overly compliant or demanding behavior. Infants and toddlers are both naturally interested in pleasing adults and testing boundaries. However, children who have been abused may go to one extreme or another. You might notice that a child only wants to do what adults say, or they may be constantly defiant or demanding towards you. Some kids are got a mind of their own, and sometimes they're not abused, just that they're strong-willed. Did y'all ever see that? For example, if a child throws a tantrum every time you ask them to do something, this may be a reason to worry. On the other hand, a child who easily submits whenever you ask him to do something might also be a cause for concern, especially if they seem afraid of you. Okay. Lack of attachment to a parent or guardian. Infants and toddlers often share a rather deep emotional attachment with their parents or guardians. However, children who have been abused by their caregivers might act distant from or apathetic toward them. For example, when the caregiver comes to pick them up at daycare, you may notice that the child doesn't run to them excitedly as other children might. The child may also avoid being touched by the caregiver and may not turn, sorry. Ah, come on now, really? I have to keep going back and forth with this, playing with this. So please forgive me on this. Something don't want me to tell this, does it? Alright, so let's go back over here and let's go. If anybody got anything they want to add to this? So we go back up. See how it's playing around with me, so y'all. It just wants to keep on doing this crazy crap. It's 2 years old right here. See, I'm trying to scroll up and it's not wanting to do that. So also delays in physical or emotional development. See how do you say hello? And they say hello, hello. But we know there are speech impediments for some children and they got to go and have different things. I'm going to close out that window. It's been aggravating to me. So here's Kid Smarts. This is Rethinking Stranger Danger. We also need to know about this. It's simple, it even rhymes, but it's not the most effective abduction prevention lesson for our children. The concept of stranger may be difficult for kids. Many believe that strangers are mean, ugly people, so the nice man asking for help to find his lost puppy, not a stranger. Children also learn that some strangers, like store clerks, police officers, or parents with children, can be helpful when they are in need. It may be hard for kids to understand the difference between strangers who could hurt them and strangers who may help them. Most importantly, stranger danger ignores the fact that most children are abducted by someone they know. Avoiding strangers will not help if the abductor is a family member, neighbor, or family acquaintance. When you talk to your children about abduction prevention, don't focus on warning them about certain types of people. Instead, teach them to identify and respond to threatening situations. We're getting this from missingkids.org. Don't say never talk to strangers, but say you should not approach just anyone. If you need help, look for a uniformed police officer, a store clerk with a name tag, or a parent with children. Don't say stay away from people you don't know, but say it's important for you to get my permission before going anywhere with anyone. Don't say you can't tell someone is bad just by looking at them, but say, pay attention to what people do. Tell me right away if anyone asks you to keep a secret, makes you feel uncomfortable, or tries to get you to go somewhere with them. This site has got safety scenarios which you can download also at missingkids.org, which you can see here. There's safety scenarios. Then there's child abductions. Of all the questions that cross parents' mind when they hear about child abductions, the most common question may be how I can stop this from happening to my child. Some parents try to protect their kids by teaching them about stranger danger. So we could go back over this another time as well. I want to go back to this definitions with the children and family services, the common indicators. Let me go back over here. So there is the definitions. Okay. Here comes the signs of child abuse and maltreatment. Here's an indicator. This is very important. The list below contains common indicators of abuse or maltreatment. The lists are not inconclusive, and some abused or maltreated children may not show any of these symptoms. Indicators of physical abuse can include the following: injuries to the eyes or both sides of the head or body. Accidental injuries typically affect only one side of the body. Frequently appearing injuries such as bruises, cuts, and burns, especially if the child is unable to provide an adequate explanation of the cause. These may appear in distinctive patterns such as grab marks, human bite marks, cigarette burns, or impressions of other instruments. Destructive, aggressive, or disruptive behavior. Boy, this touchscreen, I tell you. Fears of going home, or fear of parents. Passive withdrawal or emotionless behavior. Indicators of sexual abuse can include the following: symptoms of sexually transmitted diseases, injury to genital area, difficulty and or pain when sitting or walking, sexually suggestive, inappropriate, or promiscuous behavior or verbalization, expressing age inappropriate knowledge of sexual relations, sexual victimization of other children. Indicators of maltreatment can include the following: obvious malnourishment, listlessness, or fatigue, stealing or begging for food, lack of personal care, poor personal hygiene, torn and or dirty clothes, untreated need for glasses, dental care, or other medical attention, frequent absence from or tardiness to school, child inappropriately left unattended or without supervision. So let me go back over to the left of the screen. And so now we also hear of shaken baby syndrome. Y'all remember that? So trying to make this a little bigger so we can see it better. May is Shaken Baby Syndrome Awareness Month. A preventable, often life-threatening injury, shaken baby syndrome, is responsible for 95% of serious head injuries in children under the age of 1. Quick facts. It can happen quickly. Just 3 seconds of shaking can cause brain damage, paralysis, blindness, learning and behavior difficulties, and even death. The average age of SBS victims is 6 months old. Continuous crying is the number one reason caregivers shake babies. The good news is that SBS is completely preventable. A few simple strategies can help caregivers cope with a crying baby and prevent the irreversible harm of SBS. Many SBS resources are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. SBS often occurs when a parent or other caregiver is frustrated by a child's crying. These resources can help save lives and prevent lifelong complications. By working together, all New Yorkers can reduce the harm of SBS. You may know caregivers who are stressed or are easily frustrated by a child's crying. Perhaps you could give them some of the resources listed below or offer to care for their child to give them a brief break. And if you think a child has been shaken, seek proper medical care immediately and report the incident to the New York statewide Central Register of Child Abuse and Maltreatment Child Abuse Hotline at 1-800-342-3720. It can save a child's life. Got some resources here. Many SBS resources are available to New Yorkers. In western New York, the Finger Lakes region, and the Hudson Valley, many new parents receive SBS materials in the hospital when their child is born and at their child's first immunization. This initiative has reduced SBS injuries by 47% in western New York alone. Funded by OCFS through William B. Hoyt Children and Family Trust Fund, this program was honored by the National Conference on Child Abuse and Neglect. To report child abuse and neglect in New York State, statewide Central Register of Child Abuse and Maltreatment, 1-800-342-3720. If a child is in immediate danger, call 911 or your local police. 24-hour child abuse support and resource center. Prevent Child Abuse New York. There's 1-800 for a child. That's easy to remember. New York State Online Resources, which is New York State Department of Health. New York Loves Babies for Information Kit. Other online resources is the Shaken Baby Alliance, National Center on Shaken Baby Syndrome. I'm going to click on this. New York Loves Baby Safe. Let's see what that is. It says keeping children safe. Oh, but I scrolled too far down, didn't I? Parents are the children's first teachers and are one of the most important influences on children's physical, social, and emotional development. There are resources available to support you and your children's health and safety. It takes all of us working together to give children healthy, happy, and safe childhoods. These resources provide helpful information to keep children safe. So there's a lot of different, you could end up downloading. You see the PDF, it's in English and Spanish, personalized safety tips, and emergency contact sheet for caregivers. It's also in Chinese, Korean, Italian. Wow. Tips for being a nurturing parent or caregiver. Help your children feel loved, safe, and secure. We can all take steps to build our relationships with our children. Make sure your children know you love them, even when they do something wrong. Encourage your children. Praise their achievements and talents. Spend time with your children. Do things together that you all enjoy. Seek help if you need it. Asking for help is a sign of strength. If you think stress may be affecting the way you respond to your child, or if you just want the extra support that all parents need at some point, try the following. Talk to someone, tell a friend, healthcare provider, or leader in your faith community about your concerns. Join a self help group for caregivers. Seek counseling. Individual and family counseling can help you learn healthy ways to communicate with each other. Take parenting workshop or classes. Such learning opportunities can give you knowledge, skills, and support for effective parenting and connect you with other parents who share your concerns. Reach out to the New York State Parenting Education Partnership to find a program in your area. It's at nyspep.org. Accept help. Accept offers of help from friends, family, or neighbors, and don't be afraid to ask for help if you need it. I hope that there are lots of great tips on there, isn't it? We need to be sure to be there for our kids. They are our best commodity. We are needed. They need to be shown love. Please don't let the television sets or your telephones be their main source of babysitting. Show them that they matter. It's so much fun to sit down and even play out in the rain together. There's not many kids that enjoys going outside and playing like they used to. Most kids today just wants to be outside and inside and play on the game system because that's what they're used to. But by no means, if you got a child outside, please monitor your children out there. You don't never know when there's a stranger lurking around a corner. You might have to run inside, go to the bathroom or something, but you need to bring your kid inside. A child could go missing that easy. And a lot of times, y'all need to have kind of locks on your doors where kids cannot unlock them so that you know they're safe and cannot open them and just disappear. Anybody like to get up and come up and talk? Feel free. I'm going to go ahead and share this link. If anybody wants to come up, please feel free. It's so good to see everybody in here today. And I think and y'all make sure we'll go over Kid Smart sometime soon. We'll go over the different avenues of child abductions and stuff. This is totally what we wanted to focus on tonight is about the abuse, the signs. Yeah, I'll be glad when you're able to get you a mic. People thought you was crazy. You gave your granddaughter a stick. And a day with Grandma. We live in different states. We had the best day with that stick and imagination. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome right there. You go with little things like that, and that stick can be anything, right? You can make that stick like a little magic wand, like abracadabra. You could make the stick into so many things. You could to your heart's desire. That gives a kid a lot of imagination. People think that you need to give them expensive things. Have y'all noticed that when a kid is small, a lot of times you go and you give them a present? What's the first thing that they go and play in? If you got a big box lying around, you're like, so you had bought a washer and a dryer and then the box that come in or something like that. Your kids are going to be found in that box. And instead of over there with these expensive toys that you just bought them, right? The kids just want to be able to have that imagination and grow and to show and be creative. But if you give them all these toys, a lot of times their creativity is gone because it's there for them. As you can, she was uncertain at the start, but it's a bit A stick was a walking stick. It was a treasure finder. Oh yeah, you could also use a stick and say, "Hey, we're gonna find water here." Yeah. Oh, the stick when it goes a certain way. Yeah, that's what the treasure's gonna find. Yeah, that's a lot of fun. Use a stick also if you got some fresh dirt around or fresh sand. And I used to love using a stick and making a little hopscotch board. We didn't have the concrete walkways, so I just dug in the sand in Florida and I did the hopscotch board there too. I mean, even the little things, and you could even get rocks up, and you seen all these different DIYs. Also, there's so many crafts. I've got a house that my friend's mother had made, and she had painted it in some wooden box, and so you're able to put things inside the middle of it. But all on the outside of the house, she put different stones and rocks in it. You do hearts in the dirt. Oh, that's fun. It's a lot of fun. I used to do that as well. It's a lot more fun when you're creative with nature. You gotta let a kid be able to decide and think like, hey, even drawing a tic-tac-toe in the dirt, right? Little games like that, that's a lot of fun. Let's get back to doing things like that with our kids. Not let's see who can beat whoever on the Xbox, right? I'm not gonna diss the Xbox and stuff as much, but I'm just saying there's a lot with the nature that brings a lot more imagination. Because recently, my grandson, he was bullied at school, and just because he plays video games, y'all, he actually said about gonna shoot them with a kind of gun that he saw on the video game. That is a no-no, okay? He don't have that kind of gun or nothing like that. So that's the dangers of having your kids too much about watching the movies and playing the video games because now their violence is not working out in their minds on how and what to do. It's on this video games on how you connect and do this, and that's kind of bad. We paint stones when we are together. It's been going to the beach and getting shell and painting. That's pretty cool. Hey, Barkey, at YouTube, I mean at Facebook, they got some groups that are with shells, right? And you should see all the beautiful crafts, the creations that people are making from these shells in the Facebook groups. I like to have some oyster shells because and they're bigger. These certain ones that I've seen, and they are putting Mod Podge napkins on it too. It's very beautiful, so creative. And of course, when you got it all shellacked and and yesterday at Dollar General, I found a 50% off sale. So I actually got some I Love USA napkins. I said, "That will be cute in some shells, right?" So now I gotta look for some shells to be able to do that and put some stars and stuff in it. Creativity is a key, and if a kid messes up, if you try to teach them a little bit about sewing or cooking or makes a little mess, y'all, how many times has your kid spilled like a glass of water or milk? How do you react when your kid does that? I want to know y'all's reactions. Honestly, your reactions. Do all of a sudden you just yell and say, "You're such a klutz. What'd you do that for? Dang it, you can't do nothing right." Is that what you do? Or do you say, "Accidents happen"? When I left the nursing home the other day, there was a group of kids walking to the car. Well, one boy, I guess he had to be about 9, 10-year old, was toting his sister's drink. He had his hands full, and the lid came off of it, and he dropped his sister's drink. The first thing the mother said is, "Oh, your sister's going to be so mad at you." Well, see, I had to stand right there behind him, and I couldn't just because I had to get to my car and it was blocking my way. So I was being patient and everything. But the activist or the advocate in me said, "Well, accidents happen. Yeah, I didn't want that boy to continue being yelled at. I didn't want that boy to be threatened. I felt so sorry for that boy. That was all an accident. Oh, your sister's going to be so mad." Oh man, it's like, I could see what happened once they got into the car, you know. I'm like, I hope and pray that they were kind to that young boy when they got into there, and but I felt like I needed to do that, right? I do too. I do too myself, you know. And one thing I hate about living in the apartment I live in, I'm thankful I do have an apartment stuff, but I have concrete floors. And when I lived in Marshall County, I had a lot of different. Uh, can't think of what the name of those, but it's heartfelt keepsakes, which was ceramic, right? And I had them those that were cherished to me. That were kind of like a prize, you know. It helped daily looking at these kind faces and these eyes that were downward, but you know, you could see the love, heartfelt creation type of stuff. And man, when it started falling in the floor and breaking, that broke my heart. You know what I'm saying? And so now I don't enjoy putting a lot of my knickknacks out or nothing. And I pray the Lord will provide me a better place to live so I could get away from the concrete floors and get into a home where I could start thinking, hanging things up again and show off the pretty things, you know? Yeah, it does break your heart when it's something you really enjoy, like crosses or anything, you know, and they're just that's why I enjoy canning foods, right? And so that's why I don't buy a lot of spaghetti sauce in jars because I got a concrete floor and I'm such a dropsy person, right? Especially when you got small spaces, you know. So before we act towards a child, make sure what kind of behavior are we going to make the child so afraid to come to us when they got a problem, or are we going to say, "No, accidents happen. That's okay. It's so easy to clean up. We know this was an accident. Accidents happen. It's okay." You know, and make sure you show them assuredly that you're not upset. You can say it, but in your expression when you say it, you got to show in that expression that you are genuine with saying it's okay. Don't be calling a klutz. How many times does your kid go to you and say, "Go on, don't bother me right now. I'm busy. You know, go on in your room and go play," or something like that. But do y'all know how much fun it is, like when you're cooking and your child to get involved with helping you cook? Do y'all know how much of a gem and a bond that is? To have your child right there learning to be able to take care of themselves as well. Of course, you don't give it there and you don't when they're small, you don't let them stir, you don't let them get that, you know, where they could grab the pan and pull it off and burn themselves. Granted, you don't do that, of course. But you do have, you know, like when there was an accident that a twin set of boys, the mom had something cooking on the stove, and one of the boys was able to grab the pot and it went over him, and he's scarred for life. And so you see the twin, which looks perfectly, and you see the scarred boy. I felt so sorry for that boy when I saw him because everybody treated this scarred boy like he was a monster. He couldn't help that he got burnt, these scars or anything. He still deserved the love and comfort. He didn't deserve to be treated any different than his person, than his brother, you know? It's wonderful there's a mess, but it's so much fun, and mine always help clean because someone yeah. I had a friend over even as an adult, okay? I was making, these little Jello type of, balls, okay, flavored balls for Christmas, and I made a little round one, and it looked just like Rudolph's nose. My friend Bill Pennington that I've been asking y'all to pray for at Facebook, all of a sudden, I don't know what got in me, but his nickname is Rudolph, right? So right in the middle of it, I got that ball and put it right on the end of his nose so he could really be Rudolph, and we just started dying out laughing, you know. He said, "Yeah, now there's my red nose to go with it." Yeah, okay. So sometimes you gotta have fun like that, right? So you enjoy each other. I like the fact that a friend of mine, she had a little step stool, and her granddaughter got up there and sat on it, and it was not near the stove. It was the kitchen partition in the middle, so that was her safe zone. So she didn't wasn't around this other stuff. That little girl loved mixing up and everything. And have y'all seen this? It's cutest little boy and, I think it's at TikTok. He's up there washing the dishes and everything. His mama walks in there and she's, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm washing the dishes," you know. He's getting a little bit on the floor and everything like that, but who cares, right? This boy, he is caring enough and he's helping with the dishes, and he's doing a pretty good job. He had it all soaked up and washed them, and sometimes a kid just needs to feel wanted and needed and included in the daily activities, right? Wow, I wish I had a kid like that in my house to help me right now, right? But we got to really treat our kids with value and respect because they really do want to help out. They do want your approval. They want your love. And if you train them in the right way, they're going to show you respect, that you show them respect. But if you show a kid that you don't want to be bothered with them, they'll start treating you bad as well, you know. So just go and show them that they matter. I had a bad example when I first had my first kid with my marriage. A lady came over to the house and she was a friend of my stepmom's, okay? She would come over and every time my son would touch something or like put his hand on a TV screen, she goes, "You need to whoop him for that." He was just a toddler, and instead, a lot of times, I just picked him up and moved him away from where he was at, right? And but her answer was all the time, "You need to whoop his butt," and I'm like, "No." But now there was something that was dangerous if I said no, and he kept trying to touch it, like the electric outlet or something. Yes, I would start popping his hands. And he learned rather quickly, not to do that when he got his hand popped. But she wanted, so when she just kept on and kept on, I was thinking, well, she's an adult. She knows a lot more than me, so maybe I do need to spank him right. So I got to where I was spanking him, and it's like every time I turned around, I was having to spank him because she was saying spank him, and I thought, she's the elder, she knows better, right? And then I started telling her, "No, no, I'm not gonna do that, right? I'm not gonna do that at all." I noticed the change around in my son when she was around and said, "Spank him." He got more hostile He got to where he didn't wanna be around anybody or anything. He got to where he hid and everything, and she stopped coming over as much too. When I told her, "No, I'm not gonna be spanking him. All I gotta do is remove him from around the surroundings." Like, "No, you don't need to be around that," right? And I thought, "I don't need that kinda example, and I don't need my kid being fearful, and he don't need to be spanked every time he turns around. Just move him away from certain situations." If there's, might have left, a sharp object around and didn't think he could get to it, I went ahead and moved that sharp object real quickly, or whatever, Um, but generally, I didn't have anything like that laying around, thank God. I was more mindful of that. But that's just an example. But my husband at the time, he loved to smoke, right? So my son at times wanted to grab at the ashtray. So what do? Okay, my husband's gone to work. My son's up. Um, what I do was before my son ever got up, I got the ashtray, I cleaned it, put it on the counter or put it on top of the refrigerator. Oh, that's solved. He didn't mess with ashtrays no more, right? Little things like that you got to think of, if the kid don't need to be around it, don't put it out there to tempt them. Plus, get down with your kids. I used to buy building blocks with my sons, right? And they had the most fun sitting down with me and playing. And I kid you not, I was pregnant with my second son in my marriage, and these people came knocking, "Can you please babysit my two kids?" I go, "Well, sure." So I started watching them. Well, about 30 minutes passed, and somebody said, "Can you watch my kids?" I said, "I already got two kids." They said, "Oh, you're okay. You're the only one I trust. So can you please Legos?" And then there's tower tumbling blocks too, And I said, okay, it's fine." They said, "We ain't got nobody else." I said, "Okay, unexpected pay, my son could use a friend. We'll have like a little party over here, whatever, right?" And next time, thing you know, another person came with another kid, and I was like, "Oh, geez, but really, I'm not supposed to have." I thought, okay, we're just going to have a party. So this felt like at home because when I was raising up, there were nine of us kids at home. So what I had, the old stereo system with a radio, the record players, I had a Disney album. And so there was some Disney songs I put up there, and it was a big length record. We all sat on the floor, and we all did hand signals, and we played along with the record, and that was so much fun, I tell you. So that's why the parents enjoyed letting the kids come to my house because the fact that they knew that they would be taken care of. They knew that they would not be harmed. They knew that they would be treated with respect and with kindness and love. They knew that when they come back, that their child would have been fed, treated just like as if they were my own child. And so that was really a godsend to me when somebody would trust me enough with their children. And then my son was able to make, friends easier that way by being around other friends. So that made it a good aspect. Kids are such a joy, and really, in each one, when they leave, what they wanna do, they wanna give you a great big hug for spending time with them. Just laugh and said, "I want to see you again." "Okay, come back anytime." It wasn't no trouble at all, right? It's how you look about it. They just felt a part of the family type of sorta, so it's I wish my husband would have enjoyed that and get down on the floor with us all. That would have made it all even more worthwhile. But me and the kids, that was fun enough. It was so much fun, hearing them laugh and giggle. I didn't have them running around, like a lot of people say, well, they're, running around messing with this, that, and other. No, we were all sitting on the floor and we were role playing, uh, having fun with the music. At times we did stand up, we wiggled our butts a little bit, we did the hokey pokey, that kind of stuff, but nothing like, running and ramping around like they would say what a lot of kids would be doing. These kids actually respected because they were being respected. And by the time that their parents came and got them, all the children were sound asleep. So they were pretty happy that they had a good, eventful night out and they got to take their child home and the child being sleepy and able to go home and go to sleep and rest all night long. Yeah, thank you so much. Stay safe, everybody. Yeah, do the hokey pokey and turn yourself about. Well, lots of love, everyone. And remember to do something fun for yourself and enjoy. You matter as well. Even if you're an advocate, even if you've been through some horrific stuff, do some things that you enjoy for yourself. You're worth it. And I say, God bless you. Thank you.